Hey, good morning, everyone. Here we go. They're laughing at me. Good morning. I never do the intro, so they made me do it today. I know probably anyone that's joining us is not located in the United States. As you know, maybe we have a holiday here today, but we thought it was really important that we bring the show to our friends in Canada, our friends in the UK, perhaps our friends in the Middle East. And hey, let's bring in Asia. Come on in. Maybe in the middle of the night, they get a hankering for some, cutting the shit. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. Cut the shit, cue the genius. Today, we are talking about something that for me came up during Event Tech Live last week. I also want to hear from Liz about Texi Talk Global. But last week, there were a lot of event management platforms on the floor. And we started talking about how to really differentiate them and how to make buying decisions about software that looks the same. It's almost becoming commoditized in the perception, at least. And we came up with a pretty good list of unconventional ways to look at software platforms, particularly these that are doing event management now, virtual, the H word, hybrid, sorry, Dahlia, and in person. They're sort of jumping around, and I think we want to kind of kick off with that. So, to start the discussion, I think that one of the things that helps me differentiate between platforms is the origin story. So if on Monday they were a mobile app and on Friday they were a hybrid platform, I think that says something. I don't know what it says. It says that their developers are humping to get, things done quickly, but it also might say to me that whatever the mobile app or whatever the point solution they began as, like let's say matchmaking, is probably going to be a strength embedded with the event management platform. So I'm going to ask you guys about that first. Maybe Liz, what do you think of that? You look at a lot of software as we do. Is that something that you think would be a factor if you were a buyer?
Yeah, I think it's easy. It's an interesting thing to watch. And that's why I think it's so important that planners or really anyone in our industry is constantly doing demos, constantly learning about products because you cannot follow these paths. I mean, no one's really going to say like, "Tell me the story." And they're going to say, "We started at this tiny little company doing this one thing and then we decided that wasn't going to make any money, so we switched over here." You kind of have to watch it unfold. But I think it depends, if they start with something like networking and then they shift into something like hosted buyer coordination where they realize like this works so well and we can apply it to this bigger thing, and then from there maybe they shift into something else. That to me usually signals a lot of strength, and I'm always thinking like I can't wait to see what they do next. However, if they start with something like networking and then the next day they have a full-blown event management platform that has all kinds of tools in there that you're like, how'd you know how to do that? Then I'm a lot more hesitant to try to use those companies. And I think by watching the journeys, if you're watching close enough, you can almost tell who's just chasing the money and hoping that they can, capture market share, change their marketing language a little bit to reach more people, and who's genuinely building on a product that works really well, which is
Mhm,
obviously what we all want.
mhm. And now it's kind of going back the opposite way because I've had people ask me, well, I've got the all-in-one platform, but they don't do matchmaking. So who does matchmaking? And now you can go back to the origin story to say, okay, here's an all-in-one platform. They started out as matchmaking. I'm thinking, take a look at them.
Hmm.
So, Dahlia, we were talking a little bit about transparency with some of these platforms. Maybe talk about your ideas on that as an unconventional criterion for vetting
So
these platforms.
definitely. So in regards to the transparency, now that we have seen so many mergers and acquisitions of technology, some have been buried within a huge graveyard, and others have just been said that they are integrated into the original, I should say, like platforms, which is a big question mark in my mind. So the whole idea is if you are promoting or if you are implementing one of your merged or acquired technologies, I think it is your responsibility to share with your clients what their events or what their teams are going to be working on and stick to it. And I think from a planner perspective, those are questions that they need to keep raising, especially with their account teams, and especially if their account teams are always changing, that they keep on asking and nagging on the question of, okay, are you guys switching it out? How's integration going with your acquired other solutions, for example? But that right now, because it is very, apparent that everybody is trying to, like you said, get matchmaking into their platform so they go and buy one. So how does it work? Is it a band-aid? Is it, duct tape? Whatever it is. But there has to be transparency at all times from a tech perspective, um, on how those integrations are going.
So it's time for a good news, bad news check.
Oh
We have
boy.
no comments. So, hey, ladies, we own the airwaves today. There is no competition
I
for
would think
us.
I was hoping that someone would like have a streaming in the background while they're like, buttering up the turkey
Again,
or the bird
Watching the
or
parade.
something. But
Yeah.
hey, you know what? It's okay. I think this is a great conversation because I think people are super exhausted of trying to compare technologies together, as
Mhm.
well as they are not really getting a full story sometimes from the tech companies that they partner with. So it's a reset for many, especially in 2023. You're hearing about all these layoffs within the tech companies. You know, the teams could be always changing. So how the hell is an event, organizer supposed to keep up not only with the stuff and the shit that's happening in their organization, but
Mhm.
with all the tech companies that they're dealing with?
So it brings to mind sort of something that Prof G has said about Facebook, how they grow. So Facebook acquires. They acquired Instagram. They're an acquiring company. They don't really have any sort of, I don't know, this is what he says, original native features that they, produce versus growing organically, coding, natively, everything automatically works, it's all on a platform. It's not apps having to API together. Do you guys think that that's important? Because I've had conversations with CEOs of sort of more like conglomerates in our industry. And I asked one once, I'm like, what about like legacy code from, one company and, trying to integrate new code, a new, programming language from some other point solution into that and making it work smoothly. Is that something, Liz, that we should think about?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I compare in my brain, I won't name drop, but two really large companies that have gone, each of those different routes. And I think the platform that grew slowly over time and built and kind of learned what's next, where do we need to go? They are a much more seamless platform. They are much easier to work with.
Mhm.
And yes, their growth has been slower, but they're a very huge company that has a ton of good things going for them in terms of employees, revenue, all of those things that companies want to go for. Did they get there as fast as other companies who were just acquiring? And I think there's kind of like two games that are happening. There's the development of the platforms themselves, whatever kind of tool it is. But then there's also just this like positioning game, how much are you valued at? And that's being used to be acquired and to acquire more companies. And there's that whole thing that's happening, which I think as a planner, I don't care about that at all. It's like, go say you're worth whatever you're worth. If your product sucks, then you suck. Like I'm more concerned about that other side. So I do think it matters. And we are getting some good comments. Look, Donna's here. Sorry, I'm just reading
Hey,
this.
Joe, ding, ding, ding. Donna, and you're
Prepping her
located
turkey.
here. Hey, she is prepping the turkey.
Good
You
for
got
her.
your wish.
And
So,
Joe says, how do we feel about the unbundling approach? So that's kind of the opposite of what you're just talking about, that they kind of bring all these things in, make it one thing, and then they start saying, well, we're going to divide into these different things. What do you think about that?
yeah, so it brings about, another sort of thing to think about. Like you said, and I want to ask Dahlia about this. We've got the bootstrappers that it's like slow cooking, simmered and, grew and, you know, became what they are now, and they're solid and they grew organically. And then you have the people that sought venture capital, and you have a bunch of non-event, people that don't even usually understand the industry, in my opinion, very well. And they're calling the shots. And then you have this like crazy train of, hopping and the bundling and the unbundling and the acquiring. And then we're in events, and now we're not in events. And then we, hire like 5,000 people, and then we lay off 4,999. So what do you guys think about the bootstrappers like Event Moby, for example, who's been around from the beginning, grew from a mobile app, bootstrapped their way up, solid, versus like, a mix and match VC managed crazy train? Liz. Oh, Kiki.
Oh, we
Kiki
lost. I'm
loves Event
sorry. We
Moby.
lost Dahlia. Let's see. She says, hi, Kiki. Happy Thanksgiving. She just finished a project where one of the things they were examining was their mix of event tech.
Yeah.
I always respect a company that grows slowly, but the other benefit, of course, is that the more money, the more space you have for marketing, the louder you are in the market, the more people know about you. I mean, a lot of our clients ask us about the biggest names out there, Hopin being one of them. But just because they've heard about branding is important, and having that money to get out in the market does help you earn more clients.
Yeah.
So I have something to say about that in regards to the hop in, hop on. I think they're going to have to change their name soon, but
They're hopping off
they're
the
hopping
event
off.
thing.
But that's a whole level of transparency as well. If you are going to go down the route of, because you do know our event profs, a lot of them are sort of kept in the dark sometimes when there's like public news like that, that they're like, oh, we didn't know. Well, so this is where I think it is also an unconventional, but it's critical that event profs, it's on them to like be in the business of the tech companies that they're partnering with. They need to start asking the questions. They need to start figuring out, are you going to do, what's the health of the company? What's the scalability of your, internal teams? What does that mean for me? Like, what is the roadmap? And they need to hold the technology companies accountable for that. On the tech side, on the event tech side, I think, I I love the bootstrappers. And yes, they need to bring their brand out. They need to see, they need to shine with their expertise, because yes, it's like slow cooking, like Bruno was saying,
Mhm.
but a lot of them are also very hesitant to market themselves, to promote themselves, and they're in stealth mode. And you know and I get that the mentality is we are bootstrapping, but there are ways for them that they are able to, first and foremost, you can partner. So you can partner on your sales and marketing efforts, dollars, etc. You just have to be creative about it. You can
Mhm.
also just use your client stories as your billboards on Times Square, do that instead of paying all the freaking money that other companies, we don't have to mention names if we don't want to, but you know who they are, where
Mhm.
they're like, on the billboards in Times Square. But what I'm trying to get at is, you know, it is on the tech companies, especially those that know that their platforms are solid, that they continue to promote themselves and not be in stealth mode.
So I want to talk about two aspects of the management, looking at the management. One of the companies that we represented at EventTech Live, one of their origin stories included the idea that they were planners developing software for planners. And I know, Liz, that is important to you, you know, when and if you're a buyer or when you help buyers, that there's people on the team that actually know the industry. Because I've run into plenty of people interviewing them over the years that literally decided to develop this piece of software because they went to a conference once at their job. And they're walking down the aisle and they realize, hey, you know what, this conference is lacking X, Y, and Z, and then they're all immediately software developers. So from that aspect of, you know, management, I'm wondering, Liz, if you can talk about that.
Yeah. Big pet peeve of mine. I mean, I've literally talked to registration companies who, when I say like, well, who would you consider your biggest competitors? They say, well, there's really no one else out there who's doing what we're doing. Like,
Yeah.
are you kidding me? Like you can't even talk about your competition. So I think it's important that there are people who have experience, deep experience in the events industry somewhere in the management team. Doesn't have to be the founders. You could be that person who walked the floor once and got a great idea. Great. If you weren't smart enough to then go hire a bunch of event people to tell you what, like, really research this issue and tell you how to build it. I mean, we've looked at event management platforms where I'm like, it has a little bit of stuff for special events, a little bit of stuff for corporate event. It can't be used for any one segment because you just are all over the place. Or just even in the language. Sometimes I look at their website and I'll say, I still don't know what you do. I still am not even clear, you know.
Mhm.
So I think it's so important to have someone who knows the industry. It doesn't have to be a planner, but someone who has experience, who's been to thousands of events, who has been on the planning side is more important. Again, even if you're not the event planner, if you've been, you know, in some sales or sponsorship role in a different something. And I just think without that, you're building something that they hear, you know, the events industry is X billions of dollars value.
Mhm.
Okay, good luck. And they will get some customers, I'm sure. Everyone can, there's enough money out there that someone who doesn't know what they're doing is going to use them and then regret it, you know, but I think it's important. I mean, it's obviously, can I say there's like a company that can grow without it? Maybe, but it's definitely one of the first questions I ask.
So Dahlia, I want to ask you about potentially bro culture, or almost like used car salesman personas at the head of some companies that have come in rather recently. I just noticed, you know, you talk to them more than I do, but I just noticed that there are one or two, a few that just they seem very aggressive. They seem like they came directly out of, you know, Silicon Valley, and it doesn't seem to be an appealing look for an industry that's 80% women.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
I
say it.
mean, it's very apparent that there's like new personas that have entered into the industry from the supplier side. This is not only from the tech side, right? From the supplier side that appear very sure of themselves, very
Mhm.
cocky, you know, they try to own the conversation, they try to own a stage, they are they come across as very pushy, almost as like, you know, i'm 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 all of that and a bag of chips kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you know, this is where it's a red flag for me, to be honest, because the company, if it's represented by a personality like that, it's a turn off. It's a turn off for me as an event prof. It's a turn off for me as a woman in, you know, in this industry. And it shows me that this relationship is going to be short lived. It's not going
Mhm.
to be running deep. You are in it to get my money and not do anything else for me. And
Yeah.
that's the kind of like some the subconscious message that I usually get. And so it was very telling at Event Tech Live, where I was, most of the founders of the companies were there that really care about the industry. They were at the booths. If anybody's going to make a comeback, they will be there with their teams, not sending only wallflowers that were like, trying their best to sell the platforms. They were there, and they were the ones that took the time to say, how are you doing? Oh, I see you on LinkedIn or on Facebook, blah, blah, blah. It had nothing to do with the solution. It had nothing to do with them selling to me. And so there has to be, you got to read the room. And if you have some of these founders that are just in it, was in the sense of, well, we're the first to do this, or we're the all in one that does blah blah blah, for example, then you're not reading who the person is that you're speaking to. And that's when it's just like, all right, bro, I mean, good luck to you.
Yeah.
That turkey is gonna walk out of your oven real soon.
Yeah, I think that they kind of also forget that this industry does have some alpha women, and maybe there's three of them right
all
here.
of us.
And I just think, like, sometimes I say in my house, there's only one bitch in this house, and it's me. So, that might be part of it. Like,
actually, in
they
my
come
house,
off
we
like,
got more.
yeah.
In my
I've
house,
got
we
all
got
this
more bitches.
testosterone
So.
oozing out, and then they forget, like, I've got some too sometimes, So I don't know. Yeah, that's a good conversation, Kiki. We can have it after the party. So while
By
we're
the
on,
way, can we just quickly say happy birthday to Kiki?
Happy birthday!
Kiki, we're thankful for you. Happy
Very
birthday.
thankful.
She's spending her
I'm
birthday
thankful
with
for
us?
everybody.
Whoa.
Huh? I know.
Birthday and
Spending her birthday
Thanksgiving
with
here.
us. Oh,
Yes.
wow. Okay, I've got a good question while we're on the bro topic. Does size matter?
Oh boy.
Size of a platform.
Holy cow.
The size of a platform.
Conversation
okay?
is taking a turn.
Do you think that a major criterion should be the size of the company? Should be, the size matter?
I think it depends on who you're talking to. We definitely have clients where size matters. They can't just, fill out new vendor paperwork for every startup that comes out that looks like it's going to be great. They just can't do it. And their vetting departments, they need to have been in business a certain amount of time. They need, and for all the reasons we're talking about, because these companies are opening and closing as fast as, we can't even keep up with it. So it depends. I mean, there are definitely people, I think, who can, plenty of our clients who like the startups, they like to work with smaller companies, and they actually prefer that. So I think it depends. My personal preference is somewhere in the middle, somewhere that has been established enough, or someone that has a history. So like Twine, comes from Lawrence, who had Double Dutch. So, he knows how to grow a company, he knows how to build a team, he knows the industry. Okay, so Twine might be a smaller thing, it's growing very rapidly, but it was a very small thing, but you can see where that's going. So, but again, you have to really know these companies, the people behind them, which a lot of planners don't take the time to do. So I feel in some ways, I feel like the conversation we're having is because we talk to these companies at a level that most people don't. They don't necessarily watch every press release and meet every founder. These are difficult questions, I think. If you ask a company, like, hey, how likely are you to stay in business in the next 5 years? They're going to BS you. They could be going out of business tomorrow, but you only know that if you're reading all the news and talking to all the people. You can kind of get the behind the scenes picture. But all that to say, I guess I feel like somewhere in the middle is ideal.
I know, Dahlia.
I also agree that, I do think size does matter, but I also think that there needs to be a deeper dive in the people that are in that company. And it's hard because, like, for example, when an event prof is going out shopping for tech, they don't dig deep enough in what their account team is like. They don't interview with the account team. They interview with the sales team. They interview maybe with someone that brought them in from a marketing side, then put them in the funnel so they have a sales rep, etc. but they don't necessarily say, I want to meet someone on your customer service side, or and so I think, I don't know if I'm answering your question about the size. I think there needs to be a shift in how tech companies approach event profs, and how event profs approach tech companies when they are in the buying stage. And there also has to be time set aside on catching up on news. And I don't know if that's an idea to float out there, but there needs to be like a resource center of some kind, or someone where you, like, event profs can go to and say, what's going on with hop off, hop in? How do I secure my world and my team? I mean, we all know this, and everybody, that's in the chat room, and all the turkeys that are in the chat room. When a tech company comes and switches on you, like at the last minute, the havoc that creates for your team, mentally and physically, people actually are going to start resigning on shit like that right now. There is no, like, the bullshit meter is like way off at this point. And there's so many factors that you have to like be cat herding about. Tech being switched on you in the last minute is not a good thing. We all know
talking
that.
about like a company acquires the platform that you use, and then during the lead up to your event, they just like switch it off because like, hey, they have something better. Because there are acquisitions out there that are buying up competitors just to take them out of the game.
Exactly.
So
but they
you're like
promise
a
them to the
customer.
clients.
Yeah. It's like,
So the event profs have to like actually put in time in their schedule, in their very busy schedule, or lean hard on someone in their team to always be on top of that shit.
And that's where like us talking, and it's important that you're talking to other people who are using these tools too, because you can ask, any company can look good for a 30-minute interview while you ask them your barrage of questions. They're going to bullshit you all day long. So you have to be able to go. All the time, I call the two of you. I'm like, hey, have you ever worked with this platform? What's going on behind the scenes? Who's the people? And I talk to lots of other people doing the same thing, because that's where you're going to get the real experience. The people who are going to say, yeah, they totally screwed up my event, or they changed the pricing at the last second and I'd already pitched it to the client. Now I look like a fool. That's the kind of stuff where you're going to catch that. So it's really important to have your community of event people where you can ask these questions. Has anyone heard or used this product? What are you hearing? Because they're just going to pretend like they can do it all. And they, like you said, they're going to promise you that they're going to keep that tool that you've already bought, that they just acquired. But we all know that fear when that product you love gets acquired and you're like, there it goes. Okay, I guess we have to find something new now. So
I just changed my own company colors because I joined their community and I became a fan, and now poof, they're gone.
I mean,
you guys stay a little
we all
longer?
know I call it the graveyard, but we all know companies that are in the graveyard, companies that were bought just to be buried, and we're like, oh my God, I miss, One Lobby. That looked so good. You remember One Lobby, Liz?
Yeah, I remember.
And
there's so many tools like that.
And then, I miss Genie Connect and Quick Mobile and this and that. All of these brands, they promised a ton and gone,
Yeah.
So
do you guys have a few minutes to stay to talk a little longer, or is that Egyptian cookie like burning?
No, the Egyptian
screaming?
breakfast is for tomorrow. I do not cook today. This is not my day to cook. Tomorrow's my day to cook.
I can go a few more.
Okay. Sure. So one other thing, Liz, is, so how much of what you want does a platform have to have just before you even consider anything else? I mean, we're trying to say that features aren't like the only thing to consider, but like you got to have some of it. So how far along must a company be in what you want, having what you want, before you'll actually look elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the first piece is knowing what you want, which a lot of planners don't spend enough time, in my opinion, thinking about what I really need to make this event work and making your long wish list. But once you have that, I always say the company should be able to deliver out of the box on at least 80% of that before they start whining and dining you with like, well, we can't do that, but we could build that by the time your event comes, or we have something coming out in a few months that might fit what you need. If there's too much of that, I say more than 15 to 20% of your total list that's like that, it's not going to happen in time for your event. That's just, I've experienced it too many times. They promise great things. So that's the number I go with. It should be at least 80 to 85% of your total wish list. That's just today they can deliver well on it. And then, if there's some additional add-on things, then sure.
So Kiki brought up something, and then earlier in the conversation, there was another company who said that they are bootstrapping. This reluctance of people to go with startups and new to market companies. And I totally understand that. But what's missing in our industry is a pipeline. Dahlia, you and I have talked about this, for startups to do pilot programs or to get their feet wet and to get established. There's no support infrastructure for that. And if we had that, then I think we could comfortably say, buyers could say, yeah, I'm going to try a startup, and I'm game for letting them have a pilot program for a very small event or part of my event. If we had that, I think there'd be more of a comfort level. Dahlia?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, there are some startups, we do have to let them in. We have to like at least open the door just a bit for them. And doing pilot programs or doing sandbox type of experiences.
Exactly.
And it actually, if you don't want to touch any of your events because you're afraid of, egg on your face that the tech might not work or something like that, then pitch it to the startup. Like, this is where you flip the script. Pitch it to the startup and say, I'm going to get 5 event props with me, and we're going to do like make believe event on your platform, or a sandbox of some kind, and then have that be, just the start of it. I think event props also need to give space for brand new companies that really want to do something really cool,
Yeah.
but they need our help in order to do that. I mean, Donna has been involved with hackathons for the longest time. So, we get to we have to have the time and the patience for startups to try to hack our industry, for sure. Peggy, by the way, has a really interesting comment as well in regards to performance, and planners are afraid to actually name companies that falls in execution. Should we have performance clauses in our contracts? Absolutely. From now on, I think that people should just really revise the contracts that they have in place with technology companies based on performance, based on roadmaps, based on new features. If they're trying to showcase something for a brand new, or showcase something new for your event, and they spring it on you like 2 days before, you should have the option to say, oh, forget it, we're not doing that, kind of thing.
So speaking of contracts, well, we just lost Liz, but if she comes back, I want to ask her about this one thing. But the last thing I want to cover, which is like a big deal, is the service part, especially for the event management platforms. A lot of them were looking for AV companies or other kind of service entities to, partner with, because they might have the software, but they don't have the on-the-ground content capture. They don't have the streaming. There's a lot of pieces of, especially virtual and hybrid events, that weren't there. So that should be like at the top of the list of questions, don't you think, Dahlia?
Oh, for sure, for sure, for sure. Like, you wanna quote unquote partner with tech companies that have super solid partnerships in place, either with other tech companies and they're transparent about it, or with strategists or with consultancy or agencies, anything that will put your mind at ease that these guys know how to play with the right people within the industry, especially if it's a brand or a newbie within the industry. You can tell right away if a newbie that comes straight into the events industry, if they've partnered with the right people, they're a keeper.
Yeah.
Until they and they're actually thinking of scalability in different ways, because right now there's going to be a huge problem where tech companies and virtual platforms are going to have to outsource or think of who's going to help them service their clients, especially with thinking beyond just customization or support, thinking of servicing the clients.
Onboarding into
Onboarding
the
is
platform.
huge. Thinking of them on how to make, how to create better events. This is not something that your like account services teams are going to be ready to do. So you're going to have to lean on partners to do that.
Or that would be a perfect job for some planner that's, maybe burnt out on planning. Bring them
Yep.
in as your customer success team, train them to do your onboarding, have them provide the service that that you're lacking. And a role like that would be so amazing for some of these
Yeah.
independents that
Yep.
are out there doing it too. I had someone come up to me at Event Tech Live and said, I only want to look at platforms that don't use the Amazon cloud.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? Well, what? Yeah. And it was an agency, and they said, no, our clients will not use any platforms that are on the Amazon cloud. And I said, well, there's others to choose from, but that seems like a really weird requirement to me. Have you heard
Yeah.
of that?
No, I mean, I
Why?
think so. I think it could be because of downtime. It could
Hmm.
be because, they are thinking, okay, if the cloud goes dark, for example, what's the backup plan? But any event prof right now should be asking, what is the backup plan? And any tech company should be telling everybody what the backup plan. If this happens, then this will happen, kind of
Mhm.
thing. And I think this is also because of fear of hearing all the horror stories of all of a sudden all my events went dark, or I had to send out a bunch of Zoom links because the virtual platform didn't work. But shit happens. Tech doesn't work all the time. This is
Mhm.
why you have to lean hard on your tech companies, the teams themselves. Are they problem solvers? How do they get creative in the sense of finding solutions and not just dealing only with the tech? Because you can have a great technology platform, and then all of a sudden, if something happens, you can also have a team that says, oh, that's not my responsibility.
Should
And you
that be
don't want that.
should that be a question that buyers ask? Like, okay, what was your worst fail and how did you fix it? Because no one's going to answer
Exactly.
that question, but
Yes,
it would be so
absolutely.
great to get an honest answer,
Yep.
you know?
Or a
Yeah.
reference to the person that actually went through that.
Yeah.
So
So
Joe has one question, and I think then we should wrap it up for those that are still
upset.
cooking.
Can we wrap it up without Liz? Talia, we're going to be live all day. Let's just bring the turkey in.
I say,
Like,
that would actually be fun. I don't know who else would be in, to doing that, but let
isn't
us
that
know
what
if you
like
want like an
DJs
all
did?
day thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
DJs did during COVID. Like, we're just going to go like 24 hours and, play music. Anyway, we might
So Joe says, how
here.
much of them not having a place to start do you think comes from them not being part of the industry though? So I think he's talking about like brand new tech
Yeah.
companies.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if you don't know who to talk to, of course, by now, you pick from the list of the 100 top, leading event profs or whatever, or list. I saw a meme today, like 40 under 40. And
Yeah.
it was all the like tech people that are going to prison or are serving sentences for bogus, like tech platforms. Anyway, well, I guess we can wrap it up, Dahlia, unless you have a burning question. I just want to thank all of our geniuses. There were
Yes,
questions
me
here
too.
we didn't get a chance to get to, But if you watch this replay, I believe on LinkedIn, you can see the conversation and you can add comments, right? You can answer if you've got questions to or answers to some of these questions that came up in our stream. Have at it. You know,
Yes.
we can use this later on for another topic, but I think it's just something really good to think about. Don't look at the usual stuff. This kind of is related to our RFP session from a couple weeks ago. You have to do your homework, dig a little bit deeper. Dahlia has a grapevine that goes like straight into her office. So like if you're wondering like, hey, is this company legit? Have you ever heard of them?
I'll
If
give you the
you've
real
never heard
deal.
of them, then there's something, maybe up, or they're a startup and they need actually more help.
Yeah.
And maybe we can, help them out. So anyway, okay, I really don't know what to do.
We can just sign off.
Yes,
That's
we
no
could leave the
problem.
studio and
But
it'll just be
but
like,
thank you for everyone for being on. Happy Thanksgiving. We are super, super thankful for everybody that listens to us, and we'll catch you next week.